moving. He keeps coming forward.
Down again, I think the right hand, and he landed a punch when he was on the floor there. And here it comes now.
Jake Paul just got KO'd in the most humiliating way imaginable, and it didn't even happen in the ring. The highly anticipated Anthony Joshua fight has been canceled after Joshua insisted on real professional rules, not the exhibition-style fights Jake thrives in. And the second these rules dropped, Jake's career-defining showdown turned into a brutal exposure of fear, weakness, and reality, hitting harder than any punch.
If this is a real, legitimate fight, Jake Paul is absolutely crazy. If not crazy, he's super brave. And it'll be interesting to see.
It hit the boxing world like a slap across the face. One moment, Jake Paul was hyping up the biggest fight of his career, and the next, he was flat on the floor of public opinion, knocked out without Anthony Joshua even throwing a punch. The drama was instant, and the backlash was ruthless. And let's not talk about the humiliation, because it came in like tidal waves. Because this wasn't a normal cancellation. This was Jake Paul walking straight into the biggest opportunity of his life, and then sprinting in the opposite direction before the bell could even ring. Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua.
Now, boxing. Anthony Joshua is going to take on the YouTuber turned boxer Jake Paul in a professional bout in Miami.
Jake Paul deluded enough to think it was a good option to get in the ring with Anthony Joshua.
And people saw it for what it was. The narrative flipped overnight. Fans went from cheering him on to tearing him apart. It hurt worse than any right hand Jake has ever taken, because deep down, everyone knew this wasn't about contracts. This was about fear. Not the fear of getting clipped. Jake's been clipped before. This was fear of what happens when the spotlight stops protecting you and a real fighter steps forward.
And we just want to see it because there's a lot of hate out here on influencer boxing. A lot of people have got different opinions on boxing these days. But I want to ask you.
The craziest part is that none of this chaos was supposed to happen. Originally, Jake was gearing up for a flashy exhibition with Gervonta Davis on November 15th in Miami. Big names, big views, controlled danger. The perfect Jake Paul formula. Except the whole thing blew up when Davis got hit with fresh domestic violence accusations and a civil lawsuit. Legally and publicly, it was over before it started. And Jake, desperate to keep the momentum alive, made the mistake that changed everything. He tried to upgrade the opponent, and somehow he upgraded way too far.
It can happen in a variety of ways, various ways, but
Joshua is big, heavy puncher, but not as evasive. So I think if Jake has the right game plan, he has a pretty good shot of winning this fight.
Because out of nowhere steps Anthony Joshua, not some hype machine influencer, not a YouTuber looking for clicks, not a retired MMA fighter happy to stumble around for content, a man who does not do exhibitions, a man whose resume is so terrifying it makes casual fans pause mid-scroll. Joshua has knocked out 25 of the 28 people he's beaten, a staggering 89% knockout rate that reads less like a statistic and more like a warning etched in concrete. He's a two-time unified heavyweight champion, first winning world gold in 2016, and an Olympic gold medalist from London 2012, the kind of pedigree that turns a simple fight announcement into a seismic event.
All of that power is great, and he's knocked people out. I just have to avoid that one shot for 8 rounds, and I believe that I can do that.
When Joshua's name hit the negotiation table, every boxing insider reacted the same way. Jake just wandered into the lion's den without a map, because this wasn't about dodging punches. It was about facing a living, breathing institution of boxing, the kind of heavyweight who has survived wars with Vladimir Klitschko, TKO'd Otto Wallin, and slept Robert Helenius with precision that makes highlight reels go viral for a reason. Every ounce of experience, every ounce of power, every ounce of calm, measured confidence he carries is a psychological weapon, and Joshua didn't pull any punches in the lead-up. If Jake wanted the fight, he would have to walk into a ring where every bell could end his career in an instant. No fluff, no edits, no shortcuts.
You've got to be in it to win it, and AJ was in the right place to maximize the opportunity around him, and he has defined a sensational legacy.
What are the rules? The bout will take place at a heavyweight, obviously. It's going to be 8 3-minute rounds. You might think, well, that's better for Jake Paul, and I'm thinking, not really. It's better for Anthony Joshua because he's just going to go all out for them 8.
And the worst part is that Joshua didn't even need to step in the ring to dominate. His reputation, his presence, his cold, calculated authority on the contracts and the media stage was enough to pull Jake out of his comfort zone entirely. The influencer fantasy crumbled the moment Joshua said yes. Jake wasn't just fighting a man, rather he was facing the entire weight of boxing reality itself.
Both fighters will be using 10-ounce gloves for the duration of the contest.
And Joshua made the terms crystal clear. No friendlies, safe rounds, and influencer rules. If Jake wanted this fight, it would be a real professional showdown. 10-ounce gloves, full power, no shortcuts. Joshua's camp even said they were preparing exactly the way they did for championship fights. That alone sent a shockwave through the sport. It meant Joshua wasn't showing up for a payday or a show. He was showing up to smash. Promoters privately admitted Jake didn't seem to understand what he had signed. Fighting retired MMA guys at cruiserweight is one thing. Fighting Anthony Joshua, who has flattened elite heavyweights in front of 80,000 screaming fans, is a different universe. Joshua's 89% KO ratio alone was enough to terrify people. Add in the Klitschko war, the ability to reclaim belts, the stadium level pressure. Jake was looking at a nightmare matchup he could not spin, control, or out-talk.
Jake's a good novice. Jake's a good novice.
Oh, yeah.
And if he wanted to have a legitimate career in boxing, then he would climb the domestic rankings in America, and he might even make top 50.
That's when the hesitation started. Reports leaked that Jake began pushing for softer terms like exhibition-style rules, tweaks, and adjustments. Anything to reduce the danger. But Joshua refused every request. He didn't bend or negotiate. He didn't soften the blow. For the first time in his boxing career, Jake was facing an opponent he couldn't reshape to fit his content machine.
The contest is a professional bout and will go on the boys' records. But that being said, this is heavyweight boxing, anything can happen.
And that's when the tone online turned vicious. People sensed it. They could feel the panic, the confidence, the trash talk, the swagger. It all evaporated. Suddenly, the same internet that boosted Jake's rise was dragging him for backing out of a fight he had bragged into existence.
I will be shutting you the fuck up and making you eat your own words.
So when the cancellation dropped, fans didn't need a judge, a commission, or a press release to explain it. They knew. They saw the writing on the wall. Jake Paul, the self-proclaimed disruptor of boxing, got knocked out. Not by Joshua's fists, but by the reality of stepping into a real heavyweight arena. And Anthony Joshua didn't need to throw a single punch. He just stood there and watched Jake fall.
A professional heavyweight fight against an elite world champion in his prime. When I beat Anthony Joshua, every doubt will disappear. He's talking to you, Charlamagne.
Okay. The meltdown started the moment Jake Paul realized Anthony Joshua wasn't stepping into this circus with clown shoes on. Behind the scenes, Jake's confidence didn't just crack, it shattered. Publicly, he was still doing the sunglasses and smirk routine, giving the same recycled speech he gives before every manufactured showdown. But privately, the swagger evaporated fast. People in the negotiation room said Jake froze the moment he saw Joshua's contract demands. That alone hit Jake harder than any punch in his career, because for the first time, he couldn't hide behind his influencer bubble.
Be the same for all of us, you know. Honestly, all of us. Many greats have walked it before. All of the undercard are going to walk it. I'm going to walk it. I'm going to feel just like any of them. But when I step into that ring, that's when I switch on and I'm ready. So
his team immediately scrambled, pushing for adjustments that basically translated to "please don't let my client get killed." Bigger gloves, exhibition-style pacing, anything that made this look less like real combat and more like a sponsored collaboration. But Joshua shut it all down with the quiet authority of a man who has actually fought killers. He didn't raise his voice, he didn't trash talk, he just calmly said no. No headgear, soft punches, friendly vibe, or shortcuts. And that cold, controlled energy rattled Jake more than any insult ever could.
This is a more dangerous fight than Gervonta Tank Davis, but it's a more winnable fight than Gervonta Tank Davis.
Suddenly, Jake's loudmouth persona went suspiciously silent. The guy who normally posts 20 stories a day was barely saying a word. No trash talk, fake confidence, or hype. Just a wall of quiet panic. And right on cue, Jake's camp started leaking legal complications to the press. Because whenever Jake wants to back out of something, the word legal magically appears like a smoke bomb. They needed time, and they needed a story, because the truth was brutal. Jake didn't want a real fight with the man whose punch erased Francis Ngannou from consciousness.
I think that it's a hopeless and potentially dangerous mismatch.
So I think AJ will struggle because it's an Owen situation. If he goes in there, Jake Paul lasted the distance. What does he tell you about AJ? apart from he's just earned an extra 50 million quid.
Meanwhile, Anthony Joshua operated like a completely different species. While Jake's camp was scrambling like interns trying to fix a broken PowerPoint, Joshua was locked in like he was preparing for a title defense. He kept repeating that if he was stepping into the ring, he was bringing the same intensity he brings to world championship fights. And that alone sent a psychological shockwave through Jake's side, because this isn't some random heavyweight. Joshua is the guy who knocked out Ngannou in 2 rounds, destroyed Otto Wallin so violently the corner had to throw in the towel, flattened Robert Helenius with a punch that echoed through the arena, and survived a legendary war with Klitschko, a war Jake has probably only seen on YouTube in 480p. This is a man who has fought monsters, giants who punch like wrecking balls. Jake Paul, meanwhile, comes from a world where fighters take bathroom breaks between rounds to post selfies.
Well, by the sounds of it, there's 50 million reasons why Anthony Joshua's taking this fight. In my head, I never ever thought this fight would happen. Why? Because of Anthony Joshua's desire to be in the history books, to be a 3-time heavyweight champion of the world. To me, it shows me his desire.
Every boxing analyst said the same thing without hesitation. Jake wouldn't hear the final bell. He wouldn't make it 6 rounds. Some said he wouldn't make it past 2. And the scariest part was that Joshua didn't even need to talk trash to intimidate Jake. He showed up with this calm, almost cold energy that said, "I'm not here to play with him. I'm here to handle business." That's the energy of someone who's fought at the top of the world, someone who doesn't need drama to be dangerous. And that silence, that professionalism, it terrified Jake more than any verbal assault ever could.
A professional heavyweight fight against an elite world champion in his prime. When I beat Anthony Joshua, every doubt will disappear. He's talking to you, Charlamagne.
Okay. And that's when Jake did what he always does the moment things stop feeling safe. He tried to rewrite the entire script. Suddenly, he was asking for softer gloves, shorter rounds, exhibition clauses, creative content pacing, and even special rights over footage. As if he was producing a Netflix special, not preparing for the biggest fight of his life. The negotiation leaks were embarrassing. It was like watching someone try to bring a ring light and sponsorship deals into a war zone. Joshua's team didn't even entertain it. They shut everything down with one simple message: real fight or no fight. And that's precisely when promoters collectively realized the truth. Jake wasn't negotiating to fight, he was negotiating to escape. The pattern was too familiar. Complaints, legal threats, dramatic leaks, victim narratives, the whole checklist of excuses that always magically appear when Jake realizes he's bitten off more than his jaw can handle.
10-ounce gloves, heavyweight, Jake Paul can punch hard, but do I think that's going to happen? Absolutely not, mate.
And under all the noise, the truth was painfully obvious. Jake Paul was not ready for Anthony Joshua, not physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, because Joshua wasn't coming to create viral clips. He wasn't coming to elevate the influencer boxing scene. He was coming to knock Jake Paul out of it entirely. And Jake knew that signing those papers meant signing his dignity away. That's why he stalled. That's why he hid. That's why everything collapsed. Because for the first time, Jake wasn't just facing a fighter, he was facing a nightmare with gloves on.
Jake fought a guy who was his age and who was also considered a boxer, and he lost.
And the story doesn't start here. Just days before, the Jake Paul versus Gervonta Tank Davis matchup had everyone buzzing. Social media was on fire, YouTube was trending, and boxing insiders were already placing bets on whether Jake could survive a single round.
That's a scary one for fighters too, because things like there's something about fighters are adrenaline junkies that like to be pumped up. And
publicly, the narrative was simple: legal issues, domestic violence accusations against Davis, a civil lawsuit, paperwork drama. These were the official explanations for why the bout, initially slated for November 2025, vanished from the calendar. But anyone paying attention could smell the truth behind the legal smoke. This wasn't about courts, contracts, or technicalities. This was painfully, excruciatingly awkward. Jake Paul was terrified, and not the "I'm nervous before a fight" kind of scared. This was a full-blown, sweaty palms, panic onset terror the second he realized who he had actually signed up to fight.
Like, they're suing me for something I didn't do.
Because Gervonta Davis isn't just another name on a poster, Tank is undefeated, 30 wins, 0 losses, 1 draw, and 28 knockouts. That's a 93% KO rate. He's been a world champion in 3 different weight classes: super featherweight, lightweight, and super lightweight. He didn't just win fights, he demolished opponents, rising through the divisions with a speed, power, and instinct that makes even seasoned pros take a second look. Jose Pedraza KO'd in the 7th round to claim the IBF super featherweight title. Lamont Roach Jr. A majority draw, but a fight that showed Tank's sharpness and ring IQ. Leo Santa Cruz, Isaac Cruz, Mario Barrios, Yuriorkis Gamboa, Liam Walsh. The list reads like a who's who of feared fighters. And all the while, Tank remained undefeated, a living highlight reel, a knockout artist who could end a fight before a casual fan even realized what happened.
They're suing me for something I didn't do. Like, on God, it's just the most bullshit thing. And I literally had to pay them a lot of fucking money.
This wasn't just a challenge, it was a nightmare in slow motion. The man who thrived on Instagram hype, flashy entrances, and carefully curated victories suddenly faced the kind of raw elite power that no exhibition trick or friendly rules clause could protect him from. And suddenly, legal paperwork became the perfect excuse, a way to pull back without admitting what everyone else was thinking. He had just realized Tank Davis hits harder and faster than anyone he'd ever faced, and surviving that ring would be a miracle.
And I think if you were to pause there and ask most people, what do you think he's going to answer? What do you think a fighter would answer to this? We would probably expect things like, I want to prove that I still got it. I want to prove that.
It wasn't about contract disputes or promoter drama. It was about fear, the kind that makes a confident influencer suddenly silent in meetings, hesitant on camera, and desperate for a narrative that didn't involve being KO'd on pay-per-view.
Jake fought a guy who was his age and was also considered a boxer, and he lost.
Jake's team spun legal issues, but insiders knew. Everyone who followed boxing closely knew. The truth was brutal. Jake wasn't ready, and he had just walked into a fight against one of the most dangerous punchers alive. That's why the fight didn't just get postponed or negotiated, it got canceled. And the awkward part, everyone saw through the excuses immediately. For Jake Paul, this was more than a lost fight. It was a public exposure of the gap between influencer bravado and real elite boxing talent.
He has made a significant impact on the sport of boxing. He has certainly brought new eyes to the sport. He's done so much in uplifting women's boxing.
Tank's team is now fighting back, and they're stating that Netflix did not, in fact, cancel the bout.
Gervonta Davis remained untouchable, undefeated, and terrifyingly real. Jake Paul, meanwhile, had to retreat, spin stories, and salvage his image, knowing full well that the fight he avoided would haunt him as the one matchup he couldn't face. Because this wasn't just a canceled fight, it was a public KO, a defeat by reality, and a reminder that no amount of hype could prepare him for someone like Tank.
So he's going to go into that event very calm and very composed, and I fully believe that he does 100% think he's going to beat Anthony Joshua, yes.
The irony is biting. For years, Jake has crafted this persona, fearless, untouchable, unstoppable in his own domain. But when confronted with someone who can actually punch back and demand professionalism, all the confidence, all the hype, all the trash talk evaporated. And now, the world is watching. They know the truth. Joshua is untouchable in this scenario, but the Jake is not so much. His exhibition empire can continue online, but the moment a real fighter steps in with real stakes, he's exposed. And that, in the brutal world of professional boxing, is worse than any loss you can take in a ring. It's a permanent mark on your credibility.
So the glory, there's probably not much glory in it, apart from the haters of Jake Paul to say, right, I've got rid of this kid. I think it's very brave of Jake Paul. So now the problem child has got to believe this fight's actually happening. So now you've got our attention.
So where do they go from here? Because after a collapse this dramatic, the fallout doesn't just disappear, it echoes, and it's ruthless. For Jake Paul, the options are starting to feel a lot smaller than his Instagram following. He can pivot back to what he knows best, retired MMA fighters who won't punch him too hard, celebrities who are happy to stumble around in oversized gloves for the views, or more exhibition rematches, where the only thing that risks getting knocked out is his ego. Because let's be honest, the Joshua fight isn't going away from his narrative, it's going to haunt him. That's the fight he ran from, not canceled because of paperwork, not because of legal drama, and not because of bad timing, but because the reality of facing a real world-class heavyweight finally caught up with him. Every highlight reel, every meme, every post trash talking Joshua is now a reminder. He didn't back down, he ducked, and the boxing world is still laughing.
Be the same for all of us, you know. Honestly, all of us, many a greats have walked it before. All of the undercard are going to walk it, I'm going to walk it. I'm going to feel just like any of them. But when I step into that ring, that's when I switch on and I'm ready. So
Meanwhile, Anthony Joshua's trajectory couldn't be more different. He's a man with options and a legacy already etched in the history books. He doesn't have to manufacture hype. He doesn't have to chase clicks. He just shows up, throws real punches, and lets the world pay attention. And that calm, measured dominance over negotiations and ring dynamics only cements him further. Where Jake's world is algorithms and TikTok challenges, Joshua's world is stadiums, championship belts, and punches that actually matter. Fan perception couldn't be more black and white. AJ equals real fighter, Jake equals entertainer, and that split isn't gonna shift anytime soon. Social media may love him, and there's always a market for influencer boxing, but the broader boxing community, they're not impressed. They're watching Anthony Joshua move forward, building legacy after legacy, while Jake's credibility continues to wobble like a house of cards in a hurricane. And the kicker, the punchline that the internet, the media, and probably even Jake himself won't forget is this: Jake Paul just got knocked out. Not by a single jab, not by a knockout right hook, not by any combination of punches that his trainers would have panicked over. He got knocked out by reality, by professionalism, by the kind of heavyweight truth Anthony Joshua represents. And Joshua didn't even need to lift a glove. That's the kind of brutal, unforgettable, cinematic humiliation that will follow Jake around long after he posts his next hype video or makes another exhibition come back. Meanwhile, AJ keeps walking forward, untouched, unshaken, and absolutely unbothered.